Alright, so this video is going to cover recipes, and I'm going to go into fixing carpentry. I've already done a takeoff for counting the doors in here, so I'm going to use this as an example for the recipes. And a quick intro of what a recipe is. First thing, it's this button here, which looks like a stack of cards. And the whole idea is that where we have so far just been doing line by line, i.e. one item, one cost, one measurement, a recipe is a great way of bundling things together. Some other softwares call it a composite, some estimating courses call it the same thing, but long and short of it is it's a group of items. So in this case, we might say 4 door openings, where each opening includes the door and the lock set and the hinges, labor potentially, a whole number of things. So I'm going to hit this recipe button here, and it's going to give me pretty much nothing to begin with. I can go and grab this plus button and just add stuff in, or I can go browse recipes if I have A, built some myself already and saved them, or B, I can use some of the build exact ones, and there's about 140-ish. That said, I think it's a really good exercise to go and try and build some yourself. I think there's no better way to learn this than to just have a crack and jump in. One thing you're going to hear me say a lot is that all of this, i.e. all of the lines here, fit into one of this. And that's going to be true of a recipe whether it's each, i.e. all of these items down here as I add them in will fit into one each, or one door in this case. Or we might have recipes where all of these items fit into 1 square meter or 1 linear meter. All it's trying to do is figure out one of the unit so it can then multiply it out. That's really how it's trying to think about it. So I'm going to go and tell it what goes into here. So I'm going to say door, that's the obvious one. You'll notice it does pop up, so you can use your price lists in here as well. I'm going to say 1 door, 60 bucks. I'm going to say jam, we'll say 60 again. I might say arc, and I'm going to say it's $2.20 a meter. So this one's a little different because so far we've just said 1 door, 1 jam, which makes sense. I'm going to say that there's linear meters of this into each door, and there's going to be 11 meters per door. So I'm doing roughly 5.5 meters per side, or 5.4 length per side plus a little bit. And you can do this in several ways. You could absolutely say 2 lengths at 5.4, and that would be, just as good. You can do things like the lock set. So 1 lock set, and I'm going to allow $80 for that. Now, labor is a bit of an interesting one because people do it so many different ways, i.e. it's quite common for people who are quite experienced at estimating or have built for quite a long time to just add a single line into each of their categories or into their entire quote for just an allowance for labor. But I will put it in here just to give you an example of how it can be done. So we're going to say labor. I'm going to say that each door to install should take 2 hours or 1.5 hours. And the rate I'm using for this is 65 an hour. Great, so from this I've got a total cost for each door, i.e. for the whole assembly. And because I used an existing line, it already knows there's 4 doors. But if I hadn't measured it already, I could absolutely go and do the takeoff from here, or I could use the calculator and it would pop out from the right and kind of cover this box a little bit. And as we've shown in previous videos, you can pinch measurements that you've already done. So it's got 4 in here. And the numbers on the right, this is where it's multiplied everything by 4. So it's said, great, 4 doors, 4 jams, 44 meters of arc, 4 locks, and 6 hours of labor. And these quantities are ultimately what go through to our purchasing later. It's also what prints on our bill of quantities. And I think one of the biggest single benefits of recipes are that it makes your orderable quantities a heap easier. So rather than having to look at the total number of doors later and then figure out the number of meters of arc, it'll figure it out for you and it calculates hours of labor. I really like that about recipes and how it does that. A few other little points here and there. if you build the world's best recipe and you want to save it forever, save as, we'll pop it into the catalogs section. Much like how you can save individual prices, you can save whole recipes. And that means that you can then use the browse button to find it next time. If you build a recipe that you're only using one time, i.e. just in this estimate, you can just go close. It'll still exist, but only for this estimate. And another thing to point out is this actuals category box. So what this is about, this is more of an advanced kind of recipe feature, and it allows you to build bigger recipes where you then split them into different cost categories. So a really good example would be you might have a wall where it's measured per, let's say, linear meter, contains plaster, frame, brickwork, and maybe some wrap. And you could then split this into the relevant cost categories. If you don't use this or you don't need it, just leave it blank. It's completely fine. You don't have to go and fill it out if you're not going to use it. And yeah, keep in mind that you're only really ever using this if you intend to split the recipes up. Final point is there are quite a number of recipe videos because there are quite a number of things you can do with them, particularly around things like framing and flooring and cladding. And I mean, you can do a huge number of things with recipes. So we've got a lot of videos on them. Not going to go through any more examples now, but if you are interested and it is something that you really want to do more of, definitely go and check out those videos as well. Great, so that's recipes.